Hi everyone, my name is Nicki Pike and I'm a mortgage broker with TMG The Mortgage Group, and I'm really excited to have my friend here with me today. Welcome Alana Peters. Hi
Good
Alana.
morning, Nicki. How are you this morning?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. I'm really excited to have this conversation today. So a little bit about Alana. She is a executive coach with Now is the Time coaching and a certified Dare to Lead facilitator, which is based on the research of Dr. Brene Brown, who I love. So I'm really excited. Yeah. And it's interesting. I met Alana. We share office space, and that's how I met Alana. And we became friends and just kept talking. And then I learned more and more about Dare to Lead and what Alana does, which is why I'm so excited about today. So thank you again for joining me.
Thank you. It's such a privilege to be here. And these are, as everyone's talking, these are interesting times. And so for you and I to take some of our conversation that we've been having and bring it online is hopefully going to serve a few people, just manage some of the things that are coming up for people these days. So
yeah, and I think, and that's why I wanted to reach out to you, because we have had some really great conversations. And I know for me, anxiety it's not something I've had a lot of experience with. And I am finding now under these circumstances, I'm feeling anxiety. And I'm reading that it's normal, and that's great that it's normal, but that doesn't help me deal with the anxiety. And you know what? I knew this was going to happen. I have to let my dog out. So I'm going to let you think about what you want to talk about with anxiety, and I'll be right back.
Okay, well, why don't I just keep talking here? The dog. I'll just keep talking.
Yeah, okay, I'm back.
Okay, anxiety. You know, I'm different than you in that I've been pretty familiar with being anxious. And so in about 2015, when I started doing my training with Dr. Brene Brown, it was really revolutionary for me, because suddenly, instead of feeling anxious, I had new tools to deal with the anxiety that I had been living with for years. And so, well, I think what you've talked about, Nicki, is that you've actually identified the first step to dealing with your anxiety, and that's that you've noticed that you're feeling some difficult emotion. And so that's actually the first step to actually dealing with some of those challenging emotions. So
yay me for that.
But you also want to manage that. And so like let's dig into a little bit of that. So apart from anxiety, there's lots of other difficult emotions that a lot of people are facing right now. We are faced with collective anxiety because there are lots of jobs that are being lost. There's a lot of fears about what happens if I get the virus? What happens if my loved ones get the virus? And this is a part of a collective grief. It's a collective anxiety that can even lead to an experience of trauma. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone, but it's just really important to notice the emotions that we're feeling.
Absolutely.
Here's one of the things that Brene has taught me, in that the emotions that we deny will end up defining us. So, ouch, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it makes perfect sense.
Well, you know, I still remember when I heard that phrase the very, very first time, and it caused me to pause and ask myself about the emotions that I had previously been denying. Where was I scared? Where was I frustrated? Where was I feeling negative? Or where was I actually needing to play? There are certain things that I was denying in my life that were defining me. So once I started pulling back the layers of my emotions, then I was able to articulate them and then step into the next stages of resilience.
Wow, that's amazing. That is, I mean, the self-awareness that you just spoke of, right? I mean, that ability to look inwards and identify those emotions. And I think that's I mean, I'm not at that stage in my journey. I feel like I'm getting closer. But again, just with everything going on, and I think you touched on a lot in that whole piece there. And self-awareness being kind of that first piece. And then where do we go from there?
Well, self-awareness is huge. One of the things Brene says as well in Dare to Lead is self-awareness and self-love matter. Who we are is how we lead. Who we are is how we parent. Who we are is how we live our life in front of our clients. And so creating that self-awareness, if I could just go back to that, one of the things that you and I talked about even yesterday was a little tool that I use for my own layers of self-awareness. When I am feeling triggered, we talked about there being 3 patterns of responses when we are feeling, when we're feeling challenging emotions. One of the things that we do to hide those emotions or just respond to those emotions is we have 3 different responses. And those are very, very much like an autopilot response, just I'm just this way. Like that's very often the language that we default to. And so those 3 patterns, 3 is the first one that some of us do, and each of us have different patterns, is to move toward. So that's typically my response to difficult emotion is to move toward other people. I move into people pleasing. There's some of us who move away and we hide. Is that right? So each of us have different patterns. So we move away and we become invisible to people around us when we most need to actually have a bit of connection with people to actually dissipate some of that emotion. Emotion is really energy in motion. We've got to go through the emotion. So moving toward, moving away, and then there's the people who, and Brene identifies herself as one of these folks, moving against. And so those are the ones who look often when they're triggered, they look really angry. And so we have 3 different default systems. And so they're not all bad. Those default responses to difficult emotions are not bad. But we want to be able to have that self-awareness. I'm going to come back to that self-awareness to choose the right one.
Well, I think that's, again, when I kind of started my journey on all of this quite a few years ago, that it took me a really long time to identify that I turn inwards. And now I will tell my friends, okay, I'm going dark. I'm struggling with something. I'm going dark. Check on me in a couple days, but just give me some space and we'll pick up in a couple days kind of thing. And they're now as soon as I started saying that, they're like, wow, that makes so much sense. Now I get it. But when I just disappeared, it wasn't fair to my friends either, right?
Right. But if you can articulate what it is that you're feeling and what it is that you need, then people can adjust accordingly. And you've actually stepped into the first part of actually managing those difficult emotions because you've named it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. So that's a good thing.
So self-awareness and self-love matter. So what do we do to control those challenging emotions so that we can actually be the people that we want to be, our bravest, most powerful selves, even in the light of grief and trauma and anxiety? How do we do that? Yeah, how do we do that? So again, creating that self-awareness is important. There's layers and layers of self-awareness. And that's actually to step into those levels of self-awareness is actually compassionate for yourself as well. So just give yourself some check marks there.
Self-pat on the back.
Yay. The other thing, so self-love, when I notice my difficult emotions pop up, I don't want them to define me. So I ask myself, what am I feeling right now? Then I can name it. And I step into what's called emotional literacy. And I name that emotion, whatever it is specifically, that is more than just sad, mad, glad. So maybe I'm feeling confused or frustrated or tired. a lot of us don't even have the language to wrap around those emotions. And then if I'm feeling tired, if I'm feeling stressed, I can step into the most compassionate way of responding to that difficult emotion. So self-love, maybe the best way for me to show kindness to myself is to read. Maybe it's to pause, have a break. Maybe it's to have something to eat. Maybe it's to put down the chocolate bar. There's so many different ways of responding. And so just to be able to ask ourselves the question, what do I really need right now? What is my bravest self calling me to in this moment?
And to not be afraid of the answer.
Yeah.
Like, I know for me, again, like I've gotten to that point where when I'm having whatever the emotion is, I've learned to label it and dive that little bit deeper. But I found in the beginning, because my life is very fast paced and I don't get a lot of downtime, and I thrive on that in a way. But then I hit my breaking point. And when I used to hit my breaking point, I didn't understand what it was. And now every couple of weeks, when my daughter is with her dad, I will just take a day and I will do nothing. I will sit on my couch and watch TV. That to me, sometimes it'll be I'll take my dog for a walk, right? It's not always just sitting on the couch and doing nothing. But it took me a really long time to accept doing nothing for a day is what I needed.
Right. And so I'm going to go back to some of what Brene teaches as well, is that there's a very subtle difference between some self-compassion and numbing.
Yes.
Very, very different. And, but it's almost walking that very, very fine edge. So to notice when I need like a piece of chocolate versus, maybe, maybe the whole thing or 5 bars or however many chocolate almonds. That's what's in my cupboard right now.
I ate all my chocolate.
So, and like, it's just a really important question. Again, tying that self-awareness piece. What am I feeling right now? And what do I need? And noticing that when we numb, here's the thing. When we step into some of those numbing behaviors, when we numb those dark emotions, instead of asking for what we need from people around us and for ourselves, when we numb the dark, we also numb the light.
Yeah, I have so many things, so many questions that kind of come out of everything you just said. I'm trying to organize my thoughts, but yeah, that numbing the dark, numbing the light, that's something that I so agree with. And I've seen it happen with people that I love and care about.
Yeah.
And the numbing with everything we're living right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've caught myself saying, I need a glass of wine. Not I want a glass of wine, not I'm going to have, it's I need a glass of wine. And I have to kind of stop myself because I don't need a glass of wine. Right. But I really want one. And why do I really want one, right? It's not because I love the taste of the wine. I like just kind of that feeling that washes over me when I sit down, have that, and it's my moment to relax, right?
Well, so again, teasing out the difference between self-compassion and numbing is that really, really fine line. And so one of the things that I had to ask myself I've had to ask myself at different times is, what happens if I numb this dark emotion? What happens if I deny this dark emotion?
I'm going to write that one down. That one's new for me.
And what I've discovered is that even if I allow myself to feel that challenging emotion, whatever that might be, grief, like, it's hard. If I allow myself to feel that and I don't numb that, what I learn is I'm actually capable of working through it.
That is hard.
That is hard work. And what's crazy then too is that I then learn that I'm capable of working through it. And that builds my capacity and my understanding of my own resilience. And so I become more confident with uncertainty. I become more confident with difficult emotions, knowing that, you know what, this isn't going to kill me. I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so It's just, yeah. So when we numb the light, when we numb the dark and we numb the light, we numb joy. And joy, my dear friend Nicki, we can't numb joy
You can't.
because, and joy is not really that stuff that we have when we've got that 3 glasses of wine down our system. Joy is about connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just invite you and me and the rest of our people to that really challenging place of letting ourselves feel joy.
So when we talk about, yeah, I mean, again, my brain just keeps coming up with more and more questions. I don't know how long we want this to go. But when we talk about joy, and I think about everything that's happening around the world right now, and all of us sitting in our homes to protect each other and to protect ourselves and keep everyone safe, the emotions are so much. And I'm struggling with the joy part because, I mean, I have days where I feel amazing and I feel good and I'm proud of myself for how I've adapted and teaching my 7-year-old from home while I'm working full time and all of these things. And then I have days like yesterday where I just hit a wall and there was no joy. There was no joy yesterday. And right. So how do we keep the joy going when we are so disconnected from each other physically?
Nicki, you're a great question asker. I love your questions. So for me, I think what the research shows us is that when we step into gratitude for little things, and we just pause for a moment and appreciate things that we may have taken for granted before. The ability to move, the ability to, like, the sheer pleasure of going for a walk and feeling the sun on our face, the way that the light streams through the window in the morning. There are so many things for every person. There are different things that if you pause long enough and just allow yourself to notice. Like behind me, I have this picture that actually brings me joy when I'm having conversations because it brings me back to a memory and it brings me back to a place that gives me joy. So I've strategically put it behind me because I want to grow that joy in my life. And so I'm being really intentional about practices, you know, beginning, middle, and end of the day to really fuel my joy.
And so that's taking that pause.
It is.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing, is taking that moment, pausing, because all of those things you just said, we all have those. Light streaming through a window, feeling the sun on our face. Those are something we can all pause and feel the joy in.
And so for, like I said, for every single person, it's going to be individual. It's going to be individual things. What is it for you that brings that raw simplicity of just appreciation and gratitude?
Okay, so one last thing, and then I promise I will let you get on with your Friday. You know, with all of this talk of gratitude and joy and positivity and all of these things, I have seen some information and some writings lately on toxic positivity. So again, I can only speak from my own experience, but in certain times in my life, so after losing my mom, certain times in my life in the last month and a half, I have seen a positive post from someone that I know they meant so well with, and I read it and I just want to be like, I have nothing, like, I see it and it actually has the opposite effect on me than making me feel positive.
Oh, yeah, that feels like a kick to the gut. And I hope that I'm not coming across as
You're not
positive.
I've never felt that way about you. Let me clarify that now. I just, it's something, it's a term that I keep hearing and reading about lately. And I've after reading it, it allowed me to identify how I was feeling when I was seeing some of the positive things other people were posting when I wasn't in a place to see them.
Right. And so the way, there are certain cultures, workplace cultures, even our collective North American culture, we don't have a lot of capacity for those difficult emotions. We've gone so far as to even deny our grief when we've lost a loved one. We've not normalized grief for each other. And so when you're feeling difficult emotion and someone wants to just cover that grief over with icing, that's toxic positivity. And what you're needing in that moment when you're faced with real, honest, difficult emotion is actually for someone to be empathic, both the same, and to hold space for you to allow that emotion. Again, emotion, energy in motion. We have to allow ourselves to feel that grief and have people around us who can hold space for us for some of those difficult things. And then once we've moved through a little bit of that emotion, then we can move through it.
Yes.
And then articulate, and what is also going well. There's so many things that we can do to leverage. And I wouldn't expect anyone to feel joy after they've just lost their job.
Right.
Like
Which is what
hard.
So many right now, right? Their fears are so real. And, financial fears, health fears,
Right.
They're so real. And I fully agree. We need to recognize what we can be grateful for and find those moments and have those pauses. But I think it's also important that we can sometimes sit there and go, okay, this sucks. It's okay to be scared right now. It's okay to have,
it's okay.
Right? It's okay.
So one of the concepts we dig into in Dare to Lead is the idea of giving ourselves permission.
Yeah.
So I've given myself permission as well in this time to experience some of those moments where, I've heard so many people talk about their levels of emotion sort of being up and down and all around through a day. And can you give yourself permission to allow yourself to feel some of those things and then to move through them?
I'm just making notes as you talk, just ignore me.
Well, Nicki, so let's take this to a gritty place for you. What do you need to give yourself permission to do or to feel today?
I need to allow myself the permission that I'm not perfect. I cannot be perfect in my job. I cannot be the perfect teacher when I don't know how to teach. And I'm sure every other parent out there that's trying to teach their child right now is realizing that how important our teachers are and also how difficult it is to teach your own child. I saw someone say it's like teaching yourself, and that really hit home for me. So just realizing that my daughter's in grade 2. I don't have to be the perfect teacher.
You don't have to be the perfect anything.
Right. I ordered an air mattress so that I can sleep in her fort with her because she always wants me to sleep on the floor, but I'm 41 years old and it hurts. So I ordered an air mattress. So I'm trying to allow myself permission to be the mom I want to be and stop getting hung up on perfection.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And I'm so curious where that's going to take you over time too. And because think about what you're giving your daughter then permission to also do is you're giving her permission to be human.
Well, and I'm really good at giving her permission. I'm really bad at giving myself permission.
And so our kids are going to learn from what we do way more than what we say. So
I like that. So
hard and good. So Nicki, this is such a pleasure. Thank you so much for a lovely conversation this morning.
Yeah, and I can't thank you enough. Like I said, I took some notes. I hope that everyone watching truly watches and takes in what Alana has said, because there is so much good information here. And also reach out. I will share your contact information when I type it all up and make it all look pretty. And so if you would like to talk to Alana, I highly encourage you to do that. She has helped me so much in the time that I've known her, and I can't say enough nice things about you. So thank you.
Likewise. And thanks for inviting me into your home.
Yeah, right? The whole everyone checking out everyone's homes over Zoom is a real thing. I just sit in the same spot so people only see one part of my house.
There you go. Well, again, such a pleasure, Nicki. We'll talk to you really soon.
You bet. Thanks, Alana. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.